Welcome to the Week 8, Season 17 edition of Game Day Wrap-Up, along with Mike St. Green. I'm Cameron Irvine, and after a bunch of exciting games, 8 of them in Week 7 that were decided by one score, I could count them easily on one hand this week. Plenty of snoozers out there, Mike, but we're hoping for better weeks ahead. Plenty of football left to be played.
Plenty of football left to be played, Cam, and plenty of room for, more tight, exciting SFL action down the road. I think a lot of these teams this week said, hey, the heck with that tight game stuff, man. Let's get these games over with early.
Right. Yeah, it wasn't a lot of lemon I'm not going to – I'll say it. Lemon booty. They say it all the time in the chat. But, yeah, not a lot of that this week. and somewhere my fiance is very uncomfortable with the conversation I'm having right now. But let's start with the best game of the weekend. That was Queen City falling to Florida 24-20. They had it. They were right there, so close with Florida. But Florida barely edged them out. It seems like Queen City is kind of here to stay. It was a very good performance. It wasn't like they were going to start 6-0 and fall off the wagon. They have lost 2 in a row. They hope to have a get-right game against D.C. next week. But Florida able to get the win by 4. Your thoughts on the game, Mike?
Yeah, as we mentioned in the pregame leading up to the start of this game, 2 of the most storied franchises in the history of the league. 7 of the 16 championships have gone to either one or the other of these franchises. 7 for Queen City, 3 for Florida. Florida was just in the championship game season ago. So we expected big things going into this game, especially with Queen City. They weren't too great season 16, but bouncing back, coming in 6-1. They did lose last week, as you mentioned, but we expected a heavyweight battle, and we got one from the very, very start. The game lived up to the billing.
It really did live up to the hype, which you always love as a programmer. And Cochran looked a little shaky. Queen City's defense, very impressive, I must say. It's a huge testament to Carolina that they were able to play as well as they did, not only against Queen City, but then again this week. Obviously, that offense has turned it around. But I think for both teams, both teams probably got to feel pretty good about this. Queen City can't be feeling good about losing 2 in a row. And if they lose next week in an upset to D.C., they might be in some trouble. But for now, I mean, hey, it's a great game between 2 top teams, and they may see each other again in the playoffs.
No, Cam, you're never happy about, losing the game, in particular 2 in a row. But, they've done a lot of work in the first half of the season to set themselves up in the position right now to where, maybe we could slip up here or there. But, of course, you don't want to get on a long skid. But as you mentioned, the defense of Queen City, but I want to mention the defense of both of these teams. They've done a great job all season long. And you can go to the stat sheet, and you're not going to find many of these guys' players on any of the leaderboards, or maybe even the first page, a lot of these stat sheets. But man, the coordinators and defensive coordinators and coaches are doing something right to put these guys in a good position to come up with plays and keep teams off the board. And that's why we saw the result that we did today. I mean, we came out, both teams came out firing, and then all of a sudden in the second quarter, the defenses took over this game and kind of got in, control of the game and made it tough on the other team's offenses. But Charlie Boletsky, I got to say something about him before we leave this game. I mean, he is truly turning into one of the better players in this league. 12 carries, over 140 yards. He had one big, huge 65-yard touchdown run to put Florida ahead midway through the second quarter. And yeah, he's truly become a star in this league, and he's a big asset to the Florida Storm offense.
Yeah, first 4 possessions were scores. It was 14-10, and then 10-10 the rest of the game. Deontay Stoneville, very good for Florida today too, as well, on the defensive side of the ball. Well, as we mentioned in the early part of this wrap-up, we had a bunch of blowouts, and a lot of the blowouts were coming from top-tier teams. Atlanta is 6-2. They routed Vegas, beat them by 21. Baltimore is 8-0. They routed London, albeit late. Mexico City destroyed Jacksonville. I mean, they were in total control, making amazing play after amazing play. They won that game by 31. Lots of favorites. Mexico City's also 6-2. Lots of favorites. And what's interesting about this race, Mike, is you've got Florida, Queen City, Baltimore, Atlanta, Mexico City, and only 4 of those 5 teams are going to get that bye. So there is a lot to play for at the top of the league because nobody wants to be in the wild card round of this bracket. And so 3 big wins by big players in the SFL. Where would you who caught your focus this weekend of that group?
Well, I'll tell you what, you were mentioning Queen City's defense. We were talking about Florida's defense, but let's talk about Atlanta's defense. We were talking about this a little bit on this weekend. We were saying that, Atlanta's defense has looked better than they've ever looked, even during the championship season. Jack Napier had his run over a couple of weeks, and Ian Kindler had a run a couple of weeks ago, and then now that they didn't get a bunch of interceptions in this game against Vegas this weekend, but they shut Vegas down. I mean, the defensive line stepped up. Jason Williams with a couple of sacks, Chris Porter with a couple of sacks. They did it a different way this weekend, and Atlanta, they're tough right now. The offense hasn't been super explosive, but we did see a BDG Hollywood sighting this weekend. He hasn't put up huge numbers this season, game in and game out, but he had a couple of touchdown catches receiving, and then he also broke out with 159 yards rushing, and it's been a long, long time since we've seen him put up those type of numbers on the ground.
Yeah, Atlanta looks really good, and they are comfortably ahead in their division too, which even Baltimore can't say that, although I guess they are 2 games ahead now, but it doesn't feel like that with how good Queen City's been all season long. But yeah, Atlanta is poised to make another run, and it's with their defense this time. The first go around, it was their offense. Marcus Dunhill was driving that ship, and man, I mean, he was on a tear. Had an amazing season. And what's great, ironically, right, he's in Jacksonville now, who got pummeled by the team I want to talk about next. Look, we'll have plenty of time to talk about Baltimore all season long because they're just a bunch of freaks over there. They do it all, essentially. Yeah. But Mexico City, when was the last time they beat a team by 31 and we said, have we heard from Phoenix Jones today? Right. Yeah. I mean, almost a whole half we didn't hear from Phoenix Jones, and then he says, I'm right here, and he breaks like 3 tackles, and he gets another long touchdown run before the half. He did that against Vegas earlier this season. Ray Bentley is murdering people in the open field. I mean, he is the best open field fullback, I think, in the league in terms of with the ball in his hands. I mean, you do not want to see Ray Bentley in the open field. And, this secondary just continues to impress me. When was the last time, Mike, that you saw a game where 2 defensive backs on the same team had a forced fumble? That doesn't happen.
Yeah, that's extremely rare in this league.
Yeah, and the fact that they only have 4 DBs and, Jacksonville loves to throw the ball all over the yard, and they just couldn't figure them out. An underrated linebacking core. Dan Tritz is picking it up too. He's put himself back kind of in that all-star game category, and holy crap. I mean, Mexico City just looks really strong, just like Atlanta, just like Baltimore, just like Florida. The top of the league right now is playing crazy good.
Yeah, Cameron, if you remember a couple of weeks ago, I put the MSG curse on Mexico City and said they were, right, the top team and a great. But the truth of the matter is, they really are one of the top teams in this league. They are a complete team. We see it week in and week out. Yeah, they've slipped up and lost a game or 2 here or there, but that's going to happen in this league, as I mentioned with Queen City. But they come out like they did today. You can't help but be in awe of this team. As you mentioned, first half they were dominating Jacksonville 20-6. Phoenix Jones hadn't done anything, and then we were in the halftime of our main coverage game, and he goes down the sideline for 60+ yards 4 seconds before the end of the half, and Mexico City all of a sudden up 27-6 at halftime, and Phoenix ended up with 158 yards and 2 touchdowns. So Jason Bartley had a couple of touchdown catches in this game. Wilson was just flawless, 275 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. I'm sorry, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Jacob McCall had one as well. Bartley had two. So, yeah, and the defense, as you mentioned, Dan Tritz is coming on strong. The secondary strong with, Jeffrey Daggs over there. We didn't mention his name at all today. I mean, the team is a strong team. Ramos Lynn, we know, he knows what he's doing over there as far as strategically. So they're not going to be the team that you want to see come playoff time and coming down the stretch of the end of the season.
When was the last time that Jeffrey Daggs was the least talked about player in their secondary? Menefield had an interception. Brody had a forced fumble. And then Charbs had a forced fumble. It just Daggs relatively quiet, all things considered. And also, too, got to mention Phoenix Jones. It may be the number one play of the year. I mean, Robert Johnson had the number one play in the most recent top 10, but that run he had in the third quarter was something special, just really unbelievable. And Mexico City is rolling. Let's transition to some teams kind of in the next tier of teams, and a lot of teams coming into the week at 3-4, Mike, that got a lot of victories and got to 500. There are now 4 teams at 4-4, and they all got wins this week. That's Louisiana, Lone Star, Carolina, and St. Louis. They all won convincingly in their own ways. Lone Star beat a top team. Carolina put up 51. St. Louis shut out Tulsa. And Louisiana clamped down on the defending champs and took care of business. So of those 4, Mike, where would you like to go?
Wow, and that's a tough 4 to pick from, and because they're all playing, great football right now, and coming on in their own right, because all of them pretty much came from, out of the, from the bottom. They all started off rough, whether it was, 3 losses to start the season or 1-3 or something like that. So, but who's playing the best out of those 4 right now? And that I would like to say is Carolina. They've done a great job the past couple of weeks, beating Queen City last week, and then this game against Houston late last night, man. If you missed that, you missed a treat. This game was back and forth the entire game. Matt South has really come on strong here in the past couple of weeks. He went for almost 400 yards again last night, and Harish Prasad, I think, had a big catch in that game. Heath McDaniel had a huge game. Even Logan Jack has come on strong on the ground. Typically he's out of the backfield type receiver, but he came on strong yesterday on the ground. And Carolina, they're looking really strong. And like I said, maybe they're trying to get out of that team heartbreak moniker and make a change and finally get over the top and make it to the playoffs.
Tony Zoma had a one hand or two. They are flying. And Carolina 4-4, it's right in front of you. You don't overcomplicate it. You're playing so well, and this offense put up more points than they had since August of 2017 when they put up over 60 against the Cleveland Stallions. But Carolina is on fire right now, and that's a great pick because they got a big game against London in Week 9. That's huge for both teams. But Carolina right in the thick of it. Just 2 games back of Florida, still division, still within reach. So that's going to be interesting. I want to focus on, let's take St. Louis. I don't think anybody wants to see St. Louis in the playoffs. I don't care how rough of a go you're having. I mean, look, San Diego put up 23 points, and they've only, won one game this season, and Tulsa put up nothing. I think that's more about St. Louis than it is about Tulsa because anybody can score in this league. But St. Louis, they're a different type of team, aren't they, Mike? They feel like Queen City, but then when you watch them play, they're more of a spread you out London, but they don't necessarily have that personnel. They can hit you up the middle with Bill Cherry at fullback, and they're a really kind of rough and rugged and mean spread defensive team. It's they're a very unique team, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And at 4-4, they pose a very challenging matchup for any playoff team if St. Louis can manage to get in. St. Louis does have a big game with Louisiana in 3 weeks. That could decide a lot of things. But St. Louis, they're tough. They're not only are they tough to figure out if they're for real or not, but they're a tough out every week too.
Yeah, I think they're for real, Cam.
I think so.
You can go back and look at their record this season. I'm not sure about each and every game, but I don't recall anybody just dominating and just really beating St. Louis. Just beating them up by a couple of touchdowns, and it never looked like they were in the game. As far as the games that I remember them playing, and yeah, as you mentioned, St. Louis, they're going to control the ball with the passing game. Eagle Mondavi and Paul Delavu, they're going to put up big, receiving numbers because they're two of the top 10 in the league right now as far as receiving goes. And then today they hit you with Phil Koss, who has 140 yards. So this team is diverse. Cairo Martinez has improved on the ground. He had a rushing touchdown today. And then if the offense doesn't get you, that top-notch secondary they're loaded. It's going to be Winkler or Douglas or Roger Law. Somebody in that secondary is going to come up with a big play. You don't hear much about the front seven, but you're just not going to go into St. Louis and beat these guys. It's a solid team. They're gonna put some points up on offense. They're going to control the ball and play solid defense. So yeah, that's a team that made the playoffs last season, and I think they're for real again this season. They had a tough schedule, but they're going to be right there in the end.
I'm glad you brought that up because here are their 4 losses. They lost by 14 to L.A. Remember the first quarter from hell? They were down 24-0 like 5 minutes into that game, and then they outplayed L.A. the rest of the way. They lost to Baltimore by 11. That was the game that Giovanni Bolt had 5 interceptions. Remember when he went crazy on convention weekend? Now that 11-point loss doesn't look so bad because Baltimore's beating everybody by 30. Okay, so you got that one. Then they lost to Jacksonville by 3. That's probably the one that got away for St. Louis. And then they lost to Florida by 8.
Right.
So, yeah, you're right on that. They really have been in every game. And their 4 games remaining, the destiny is in their hands. They're 2-0 in the division after a sweep of Tulsa. Their last 2 games of the season are against Louisiana and Atlanta. So the 2 teams that are right there with them in the division, or in Atlanta's case ahead of them, they have a chance to beat. And then their other 2 games, San Diego and Vancouver, you would figure that St. Louis should take care of San Diego, and then that Vancouver game is going to be big for both teams. So
yeah, very
interesting stuff for the Gladiators. All right, Mike, our game balls this week. Who you got first?
Wow, Cam, it was some oldies but goodies, man, that I've been really waiting to see something from all season long. And one of the games that just finished, Jason Williams, where has he been all season? I mean, he's one of the top guys in the league. Don't get me wrong; he's in the top 5 in rushing. I'm sure of that. But we hadn't seen we've seen Jason Williams, but we haven't seen Thrilliams. And we finally saw Thrilliams today. A couple of huge, big runs that we're used to seeing from this guy. 159 yards, 3 touchdowns. Fort Worth with a big win over San Diego to try to keep their hopes alive. Jason Williams gets my first game ball.
All right, I'm going to go Matt Wilson. When you were talking about oldies but goodies, hopefully I took one from you. Just 6 incompletions. That was the best I've seen him play in a long time. Mm-hmm. Mexico City is kind of one of those teams, Mike, that always ends up 6th or 7th, right? And they've not been at that upper echelon. Early in the season, it looked like he was a liability to the ground game more than he was an asset. But it seems like the loss of Nate Ritters, the addition of another tight end, Bill Henry, and just kind of that reconfiguration of that offense, Jason Bartley and Jacob McCall have stepped up, and it looks like Wilson really favors these guys. Of course, Fox Highwind is always there, but Bartley and McCall, they've really been kind of the staples in the last couple of weeks, especially today. And Wilson was just, like you said earlier, he was flawless and gets a game ball.
Oh, yeah, that's well-deserved, Cam. You did not actually steal that one from me. He was definitely on my list for as an honorable mention. But, you did not steal that one from me. But, yeah, excellent performance today. And then offense, as you mentioned, I think the balance of it all, he's finding Bentley out of the backfield, as you mentioned, the extra tight end on the roster now. I think he just has a comfort level with that, and we're seeing it come to fruition in his play on the field.
I am with you. All right. What you got next?
All right, number 2. And like I said, we're going to stick with the oldies but goodies. We finally had a BDG Hollywood sighting this weekend. And wow, a huge performance from BDG, a couple of touchdowns receiving, as I mentioned earlier. But what I was most impressed with him this weekend was the ground game. He had 159 yards on the ground as well to match Jason Williams. But both his touchdowns were through the air. But
Right.
He made a huge difference in this game with his rushing, and that's what made a difference in Atlanta's victory this weekend, and keeping defense off the field and fresh, and really protecting Bryant Dynasty, to keep him from turning the ball over. He kind of struggled with that a little bit this season, and in turn, Dynasty had a solid game, over 200 yards and a couple of touchdowns and no interceptions for him. So BDG in this performance today, and this weekend in particular, rushing the ball to looking like the BDG that we've all come to know and love. He gets my second game ball.
Yeah, that offense goes as BDG goes. And when he's explosive and extraordinary like he was this week, man, there's just no stopping them. They're just so talented. Falco and Chisholm, along with BDG, it's one of the most dynamic units in the league, and it's so fun to watch. I'm going to go back to the Fort Worth game because I was feeling them too a little bit. It is San Diego. Yes, they're 1-7, right? But it's how you win these games, how these players perform, that really make a difference. It doesn't matter who you play. And I'm gonna give a co-game ball to Robert Garrett Jr. and Lauren Percoco because finally the Fort Worth tight ends were back. Robert Garrett Jr. had a touchdown that broke 3 tackles. Percoco had a one-handed snag. They looked so good out there, and it was just the way that they were involved. They combined for over 130 yards receiving, and if you can get that out of a tight end unit, you can get that. You're going to get points. Period. It was really fun seeing again. The expectations are low because San Diego is not of the upper echelon of teams right now, although they are improved. But they just did it the way that Fort Worth did it last year, the way that we thought they were going to do it again this year. It was really the first time where we were like, wow, Fort Worth has a shot here.
Yeah, Cam, let's not take anything away from Fort Worth because of who the opponent was or was not, because that's what I was going to mention. This is the Fort Worth that we were expecting to see from week 1. To getting the tight ends involved, and Stephen Hacker had a huge touchdown in this game. The other receiver, Curtis,
Kate Stevens.
Kate Stevens, I'm sorry, had a huge catch in this game. Obviously, I just mentioned Jason Williams. This is what we expected to see from week 1. So I'm not surprised to see it at all. Regardless of the opponent, this is what we expected to see. Getting the tight ends involved. Yeah, this is a huge co-game ball and well-deserved.
All right, last game ball, Mike.
Well, Cam, I'm going to have to revisit a game that I really didn't want to. And you know what? I'm not going to revisit that game.
He took it away from him.
I'm gonna go to another oldie but goodie.
Who'd you take that away from? Who'd you take this? Come on, who'd you take that away?
Sorry, Austin Brigham. I'm going to take this game ball away from you. I'll give you an honorable mention. You definitely set the tone for that game today with a couple of early picks and they got Baltimore off to a huge start. But I kind of had a theme going, and another oldie but goodie, and we're going to stay in the backfield, and someone that we've been waiting for all season long again, and that team has come on strong and started to show something different here the past few weeks. I got to go with Ike McBride. 138 yards, 2 touchdowns, and we saw the Ike McBride this weekend that we were accustomed to seeing, 5 yards to carry, cloud of dust, dropping her shoulder on people, and keeping Lone Star on long drives. And and that's what we have been accustomed to seeing, and we hadn't seen much of that this season. So Ike McBride gets my third game ball.
We like Ike, and it really, they're just another team where it's just like, wow, here they come. Here comes Lone Star. And Sudo Nakai, really good blocking, has developed into a really terrific blocking fullback. They don't necessarily use Nakai a lot on the ground or in the passing game, but he is out there, let's be clear, to block for Ike McBride. And McBride is just, I mean, when you can outplay Robert Johnson in that game, that's how that game needed to be won. The only female running back in the league, making it happen, getting it done for Lone Star. I totally agree. My last game ball is going to go to Evan Arthur of Louisiana. He had a couple of picks, but more importantly, someone needed to step up for that city in Houma, Louisiana, for their owner who has been living off a generator for weeks and has been kind of down and out in terms of game planning. It kind of feels like Louisiana of a couple seasons ago, where this team is a team. And when someone needs to be picked up, they pick each other up and they keep rolling. And, I mean, they looked like Denver didn't even look like they belonged on the same field with them. It was a 16-point win, but Louisiana just clobbered them. They suffocated Denver. They did not give Denver any kind of chance in that game, and Evan Arthur was the tone setter. First game back since Ida. Louisiana needed that. On September 11th, Stack Up Day at Stack Up Stadium for military charity. Somebody needed to step up. It was him, and Evan Arthur gets my game ball.
Yeah, Cam, that's a great choice. And as you mentioned, these guys, somebody needs to step up, and they almost right now seem to have that team of destiny kind of feel to them. They've been steamrolling teams really since the storm down there. And what else can you say about them? The defensive line stepped up as well. Luther Gahn still had a great game the other day, and Reggie Streeter was solid. Tommy Utah was solid, and B. Robo came up with a couple of catches here or there. But more, what you can say more than anything, that this is a team, and they are getting it done as a team. That's they're at 500, and next weekend that Louisiana and ATL game, that's going to be a monster of a game. I can't wait to see it. Looking forward to it. And hey, both defenses are playing great right now, so that game is going to be who are going to show up, make the biggest plays in this game, and that's probably going to be the victor. But man, I can't wait for that matchup next weekend. That
game is going to be very exciting. A fantastic Sunday slate next week. Saturday, we kind of, clean up some lost causes, and we got a couple good matchups in there. Fort Worth, Houston's going to be big. Carolina, London, but Sunday, man, next Sunday, you won't want to miss it. Some tremendous games, including that Atlanta-Louisiana contest. All right, that is the end of Week 8 here in the Simulation Football League, presented by APM Music, and he's Mike St. Green. Well, you're over there. You go. You're over there. And I'm Cameron Irvine, and have a great week, everybody, and we'll see you next weekend.